today I'm going to be replacing the door speakers in my Nissan 350Z, and I will be replacing them with these Kicker 6.5-inch speakers. I'm going to show you all the needed steps and needed tools you will need to finish this project. Should take you about an hour. If it's your first time, this is my second door. It shouldn't be too hard. The first door just takes a little bit because you have to learn how to disconnect the door card. It can be a little finicky sometimes. You think you might break stuff. So for the tools you'll need is a 10mm socket with at least 8 inches of extension, because you have to reach down into this door to get 2 screws out of here. You will need some type of screwdriver, or what I actually have is a specific tool to pull out interior parts without breaking them. But a flathead screwdriver like this will work just fine. You just have to be a little careful. You don't want to scratch anything up. The next tool you will need, it's not 100% needed, but I'm trying to make this look pretty nice, and I want to be able to quick disconnect my speakers, so I'm using a wire stripping tool to be able to add crimps onto my wires. And I have 2 crimp tools. This is a cheaper crimp tool that can be bought at pretty much any auto parts store for probably around 20 bucks. And this is a more expensive tool that locks and has multiple sizes. It's not needed, I just have one because that's what I prefer to use. For the crimps, if you would like to crimp your stuff, because the crimp, what comes with the speakers are butt splices, and I would prefer to use female and male disconnects, which makes it much easier to just easily plug them in and unplug them if you want to replace your speakers. And I just think you get a better connection instead of using a butt splice. And you'll need 4 of these in total for the 2 doors, and then 4 of these male disconnects in total. I'll leave all the parts needed in the description. And then the other main part you will need is, of course, your speakers you're replacing. And this is a mount that I have 3D printed because the speakers that I have got sit a little farther back into the door, and I've heard that sometimes you can have a little bit of interference with the magnet hitting on the door. So I went ahead and 3D printed some mounts that you can easily buy on any website. Just I had a 3D printer, so I decided to print these myself. I'll leave a link in the description where you can find those, or you could even leave me a comment and I may 3D print them. Okay, so the first step of this process is removing this inner trim piece to reveal 2 10mm nuts that are up under here. And you do that just by simply pushing this into the edge and just popping it up. It can be easily done with a screwdriver. I just prefer to use the tool because I don't want to scratch this leather, but I've seen plenty of people do it with a screwdriver with no problems. So the second step is there's 2 10mm nuts up in here that need to be removed. All right, so once you have the 2 10mm nuts removed, you simply just pull on this handle. It may seem like the whole door card is gonna fall off, but you just put your hand right here, it keeps everything stable. So once that is removed, you will need a flathead screwdriver or a tool to remove interior pieces, and you're gonna pop this window switch actuator off. So from here, there's a plug that needs to be disconnected. Sometimes you can push it in with your finger and get it disconnected, but what I find much easier is to get a flathead screwdriver and just push down on it, and it comes right out. So from here, there should be, well, in my case, the nuts are missing, but there's normally 2 nuts right here that you have to unscrew to pull the door card out. But in my case, there is none. And there's also a nut up here that normally is removed, but a lot of people I've seen on YouTube, it's just gone from their car, and it's no problem. The door's held on completely fine by the 2 screws and the clamps. Okay, from this point, you need to remove the door card, and it may seem like it's gonna break when you pull it off, but it just takes, you have to pull it pretty hard, and all the clips will come out. And it'll leave your door card sitting like this. I'm just gonna rest it on the ground because I don't feel like messing with the door handle. A lot of people have taken it out, just I don't feel like messing with it. And then I'll just leave all this stuff plugged in because it should be fine sitting like this. So once you have your door card off, there is 3 10mm bolts that will bolt into the stock speakers, and there's a plug that plugs into the speaker. So in my case, I'm not reusing this plug, so I went ahead and cut the plug off and unplugged it. The way you get this unplugged is you use a flathead screwdriver, and there's a little pin right here that you push down onto the flathead, and it will pop the pin out. So once you have those 10mm nuts out, there's actually some adhesive on the back of the speaker, which you'll think you don't have all the nuts out, but it's just because this is so sticky on the back. Okay, from this point, you will need to either grab your male or female disconnects. It doesn't matter which ones you're using, because at the end of the day, they're plugging into each other. It doesn't matter which is on which side. In my case, I'm using the male disconnect to crimp onto this red wire. You don't want to leave a bunch of wire sticking out because that can cause shorts, and if any water were to drip onto this, could cause you a lot of problems. But you do want just a little bit sticking out so you know you're getting a good crimp. So once you've crimped it, I would go ahead and give it a good tug. If it doesn't move, that means you have a good crimp. But if the crimp comes off, you should redo it because that means the crimp is not seated well. So now I have both of the crimps onto the wires, and I will now install my new speaker. So this piece that I 3D printed, it did not have a hole for the wires to run through, so I went ahead and just drilled a hole in it. I don't know if the ones you order online will have a hole, but if not, you can just easily drill a hole through it and there'll be no problems. So from this point, I'm going to go ahead and install my new speaker. So once you have the speaker mounted in the door, it's now time to wire the speaker into the door. So from doing some research, I found out that the red wire is the positive wire and the blue wire is the negative wire. And with these speakers, I went ahead and marked with a red marker which wire is my positive wire, because the positive wire is not marked. However, the negative wire is marked. I went ahead and marked it in case I were to mix it up, because the black stripe is only on one side of this wire. Next step is cutting these to length and putting your female disconnects onto these wires. So I'll grab my, I can't think of the name. So I'll grab my snips, and I'm gonna go ahead and figure out what length I need. I do want a little bit of slack, so I'm gonna cut these about right here. And now I'm gonna go ahead and spread these apart. And I'll use my stripping tool to remove the coating off of these wires and do about 1/4 inch of coating. So once that's removed, go ahead and grab my crimps, and I'm gonna twist these wires to make it easier for the crimps to slide on without bending any wires and missing any of them. Now you just slide the crimp over top of the wire, grab your crimping tool, and go ahead and crimp the wires. Now, just like on these other crimps, you want to make sure you have a good connection, so go ahead and pull on the wires. If you feel it come out, that means you don't have a good connection and you should redo the crimp. But if not, the connection is good and you're good to go ahead and plug the wires in. So as I said earlier, you want to make sure you're plugging the same wires in on both sides. So in my case, I'm using this black striped wire, which is on the speaker, it's the negative wire. I'm plugging that into my blue wire. And I'm plugging the wire that I striped with a red marker into the red wire. So after that, your speakers are fully installed, and it's just all about putting everything back together now. So to start, you want to go ahead and reinstall the door card. Make sure everything lines up. And the easiest way to reinstall this is to sit it up on your window, and then make sure that part lines up. And once you've got it seated like that, you just push everything back in. It may sound like you're breaking stuff, but sometimes it's necessary to hit this pretty hard. Nothing's gonna break, it's just making sure everything reseats properly. So in most cases, there would be 2 bolts that go right here. But when I opened up my door card, I found out these bolts are missing, so I will not be reinstalling those bolts because I do not have those. So now I'll re-plug in my window switch actuator and continue to reinstall this. So once that clicks back in place, you want to grab the passenger side door handle and slide that into place. And now reinstall the 10mm bolts. And now all you have left to do is reinstall the cover. And now the passenger side is done. So for the driver's side door, it's the exact same process as the passenger side. You will lift up this door handle, pop off this little plastic piece right here, which on my car, for some reason, both of these bolts are missing. But once you pop that off, you take off the bolt, and then you will use a screwdriver to pop this piece off, unplug the window actuator, and there will be 2 nuts that you will disconnect. There's one right here, and I believe one right here. And from there, you will do the same processes as the passenger side. So I hope this speaker install video helped you guys out. If you got any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. And if this video helped you guys out, make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate it a lot.